Hello everyone, so what are my views on globalization and its effect on the world, what it is in essence? Globalization can be many things. It can be economic, it can be a combination of nations, it can be an agreement of non-aggression. It can be great things and it can be very oppressive things. The oppressive things might include a single hegemony, a single top order of elite individuals making decisions for the entire world, for all the nations in the world, all the communities in the world, and it could be the first world countries taking control of what jobs are provided, and third world countries basically completely relying on the first world countries' mercy in what jobs they put out, and what jobs are not replaced by robots or manufacturers or factories that are completely technologically upgraded to where they don't need humans anymore. Um, there's a lot of dangers to globalization. We we may have a tax that simply can't be voted on. We may have a tax that is just basically your duty to uphold and contribute to without your ability to vote on it. Goes back to the American Revolution. And imperialism is always the danger with globalization. Capitalism at its height, not free market. Free market and capitalism, I don't view them as being coherent together. Free market is something that doesn't have monopolies, and you need laws, you need regulations to keep those monopolies from happening. But if you just have capitalism, then and you don't have the regulations, then monopolies are going to form. Companies are going to act in ways that allows them to gain more power to the extent that they will eventually control the complete market. And so it wouldn't be free anymore. And right now it isn't free, especially in the United States where regulation has really dropped to an all-time low in the last, well, compared to the last 100 years. Before that, monopolies weren't even addressed a lot of the time. But it's it's very difficult to decide if globalization would be more beneficial for humanity or less beneficial, because if we had a globalized system, then trade and a scale down of our militaries globally, and care for the least fortune of our global citizens would increase. The care for the citizens, smaller militaries around the world because they wouldn't be necessary, and of course, if we did have a democracy in this globalized society, then we could vote. Everybody could vote on who would be basically the president, prime minister, whatever. When it comes down to that, but it's very difficult to say if just because somebody has more people that they would have a bigger say in the globalized society. Now, we have a system in the United States where we have the Congress, the House and the Senate, and we have the executive branch, legislative being House and Senate, executive branch being president and his cabinet, and we have the judicial branch, which is the adds to the checks and balances by interpreting laws. But this system isn't proving to be effective in the modern day. When a president doesn't really care about what Congress says, it takes a lot of the Congress in order to override what he wants to do. Take Trump, for example. I'm not going to go into details, but I'm using him as an example for this. And when we're talking about the judicial branch, if or a majority of conservatives or liberals basically have more justices in the Supreme Court, then they can control that very easily. The checks and balances in the United States seem to be more of a ploy, an attempt to have checks and balances rather than an actual mission accomplished. And, the founding fathers of the United States, they couldn't anticipate all the things that are happening now, and that's why they put the amendment process into place. Amendments being laws that can be instituted and added to the Constitution so that any necessary change could be affected without completely reorganizing our Constitution, our political system, and anything like that. Globalization would most likely have a constitution. It would probably mostly have a system of checks and balances. Now, there's no way to affect this completely, but a system of checks and balances mostly is what I see happening in the future. Now, when we look at, I don't want to really go to fiction, but I want to use one fiction example. Star Trek. Everybody is provided for as long as they try to pursue what they find that they're good at and that they like. If somebody is a good programmer, or a good butcher, a good chef, a good factory worker, a good doctor, a good scientist of any sort, and you pursue that, then you're living up to the societal standard. You don't have to succeed, you just have to pursue it. And in Star Trek, it seems utopian a lot of the time, but when our technology reaches a certain point where everybody can be provided for, then we would be able to at least provide a minimum for everybody around the world. In the United States, we could provide a minimum of education and healthcare, but we don't, because we're spending so much on the military, and we're spending so much on giving tax breaks to the wealthy. But that's a very specific topic that I'm not going to get into. Suffice it to say that it isn't sustainable for a global population just to have the top 1% of the world, or even less, much less in the United States, gaining all of the benefits from the profits from the work that's happening around the world. Workers, even from around the world, not just the United States, are attributing to the profits of the elite in the United States. Now, globalization, if it's democratic, if it can sustain a distribution of wealth that's not complete, but just mostly distribution of wealth, just a fair distribution, a flat line, if you will, to build off of, I think globalization can work. And if we can somehow resolve our fear and our need for military strength in whatever province or state or country we're in, we can resolve that and say, okay, we don't need that if we're all connected in this way, then we can really progress as a humanity, as a united humanity, as people. And that's what I hope we get to. That's the good side of globalization, but there's also a tyrannical side, which is very possible. It just depends on how it's instituted. But these are my thoughts on globalization. It's been a rant. I don't want to give you the impression that this has been very specific, or that these are all my opinions. This is just based on a rant that I decided to do. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the future and speak to you very soon.